Yay.
All
We
moms just trying to figure it
live.
out.
I know. I love it. This is so fun. I took
Life, right?
a little screenshot of us because this is so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People from all over too. It's so cool.
It is literally like every time zone represented. Possible.
Where
Yeah,
are
when
you
we-
again, MJ?
I'm in DC,
Okay.
so East Coast. Way east.
Nice.
And I think you're
I'll
in
be
the East
there.
Coast too, right?
Yeah. I'll be there in DC in April.
Oh my God. We should
Yeah.
get together. We'll swap info. Are you
Yeah.
coming for like a conference or something or just to visit?
I have family in. I'll remember what part of it is later, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the names.
I think it's near Arlington. I think.
Oh,
it's,
great.
Yeah.
Okay, well there we go. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll overlap. It'd be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
We have family out there too, but we have yet to make it and actually see them. So at some point.
Yeah. With 2 kids, I don't know. I wouldn't be making that trip from Colorado either.
Yeah.
So it's a journey.
We're going to give it a bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Will we start to see folks as they trickle in?
Yeah, or only you see them, Katie. I don't know how it goes.
I don't know if we will see everybody coming in. No, but let's see. People, that's us. Let me just make sure this is the right invite on here. I'm just going to pretend to join from the invite link. Yeah, they should be able to join from there.
Cool.
But do we see them or do only you see them?
We don't see them, no.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're just going to do this then like it's some gals chatting. It's going to be great.
Oh, we can do that.
Okay. Well, for timing's sake then, and since we can't see or don't know who's all joining, let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hi, everyone who's watching live or who's watching this after the fact. First, want to just say welcome and that we are so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you could join us today. We have some really incredible panelists in the motherhood space who are all bringing in their unique perspectives to the motherhood journey and just how we grow and change throughout that process. And we're very, very excited to have this conversation today. This is The Messy Middle, Navigating Career and Identity After Motherhood. So we created this panel because each of us works in the motherhood space in different ways. We all support women in some aspect, whether that's through career transitions, mental health, nervous system regulation, postpartum recovery, and just all the realities of being a working mom. And across all of that, we keep seeing the same thing. And it's that this season of motherhood feels in between. You aren't quite sure, or you're not in the same space that you were before motherhood, but you're not quite sure what's next either. And that messy middle can feel very confusing, very heavy, and a lot of times isolating. And so tonight, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you're at, is really about naming that space and offering perspective and support from different lenses. Before we dive in, though, I want to just kind of name a few things about the conversation that we're going to have today. So first, I want to acknowledge that every mom's situation is different. Every mom's experience is different, their background, their economic reality is different, that there is no single motherhood experience that is the same, and there's no one right way to navigate this season. So today we're going to be talking about health, mental load, boundaries, advocacy, not as luxuries, but as foundational parts of just being supported in this season. Because we all believe that every mom deserves access to language, tools, and support that help her function well, allow her to advocate for herself when needed, and really move through this season in a way that feels sustainable. So this conversation today should be exactly that. Conversation. It's not a checklist. It's not a systemized plan. This is just a way for us to identify our real experiences, offer resources that allow you to kind of live in this season that you're in and gain a little bit more clarity to navigate that. Katie will also share a link afterward to a free roundtable inside her community, the Her Space community, if you would like to share your story, receive validation, and continue that conversation. That will be available after we get done. One last quick note, for anybody who's on the East Coast, I know that this is like prime time during the day. You're probably in the middle of getting dinner or wrangling kids or like God knows what. So if you are in the middle of that, I get it. We understand. We're all moms. Feel free to take this in however you need to. All right, so with that, I want to turn it over to our panelists and have each of them introduce themselves so you know who is joining us. So if each of you could share your name, a little bit about you and the work that you do, and where you are in your motherhood journey, it'd be wonderful. I'm just going to go how I see you all on my screen. So Katie, I'll have you go first.
Thanks so much, Sydney. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie. I'm calling in from the East Coast, and I am a certified health and wellness coach and also the founder of I'm Her Story and Her Space community, where we bring women together who are dealing with toxic work environments, dealing with ageism, career redirection, kind of finding themselves in corporate after becoming a mother and not really knowing where to begin or where to go, maternal discrimination, and anything else that kind of comes up in a woman's life. So it's a safe space for women to tell their story, gather together, and then also get some nervous system regulation tools, advice on health and wellness and how to take care of yourself in all those different stages. I am a mother to twins that are 4, and then I'm also in my second trimester of my third pregnancy. So yeah, that's me. And
Awesome.
how I came into this work. So sorry. I had kind of followed a blueprint in my life. I did everything I was told to do. I followed all the rules. I watched my parents in corporate, so I just went to college and did the same thing. But I kept having these alarm bells going off in my body all the time. I just never felt safe. And it wasn't until I did a lot of internal work, went back to school for integrative nutrition, and then unblocked a lot of my self-limiting beliefs that were living in my subconscious, that I was able to figure out what I actually wanted aside from societal and familial programming. And that's what I help women do now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Katie, for being here. We're so excited to have you. Vanessa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm the founder of Mothering Minds. We're a perinatal mental health platform offering on-demand online talk therapy for the whole journey of parenthood. So we include trying to conceive or planning whether you have children, to pregnancy, birth, and the postnatal period. I came to this work after becoming a mother myself. So I have one daughter, she's 3 now, almost 4. And to me, becoming a mother was a real shock in terms of my identity and what I'd conceived of as a purposeful life. Before I founded Mothering Minds, I was a freelance journalist and I really enjoyed the work, but I found I wanted to make more of an impact, and I wanted my work to become more purposeful. And so looking into the lack of provision in terms of maternal mental health or perinatal mental health for both parents, but especially mothers, I felt really compelled to set up something to help with this. And I'm calling in from the Philippines, where my family moved in September. So the roosters are my fault, sorry. And it's early here, but this is really worth it. And I'm so glad to be joining you girls.
Well, we love it. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for getting up super early and doing this with us. And I love that the roosters are roostering behind you. So thank you for being here. Megan, I'll have you go next.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here and connecting with everyone. My name is Megan. I am a previous recruiter turned career coach and therapist, and most of my work is centered around career clarity. And after having my own child, he's 1.5 now, and a first time parent, um, I found that a lot of my clients, I was connecting with parents more and more. And my niche has become helping parents find career clarity. Sometimes that's returning to work. Sometimes that's with changing values, kind of like Katie mentioned. And I've also gone through my own career transition as well. So I bring that experience, and I love helping people kind of crystallize their values and their strengths and implement those.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you, Megan. MJ.
Hi, everybody. I'm MJ Harford Yost. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm a therapist with my own private practice in the DC area. But last year, I also turned tech founder, and that's how I started to connect with these wonderful women in this panel today. I struggled with the return to work experience, and I continue to see my clients struggle with that return to work experience. So what I turned to is building a parental leave solution, which is an integrated software platform for businesses and for parents called Resilient Returns. We really help manage the administrative burden and the interpersonal challenges and the intrapersonal challenges that come with parental leave to really make this opportunity shine what it means to go back to work. I'm just so excited to be with everyone tonight, or yes, this morning, or whatever in the day you may find yourself here to talk about this really valuable period of time.
And MJ, did you share where you're at in your motherhood journey?
Sure didn't. I am, and that might also be indicative of where I am in my motherhood journey. I'm a mother to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, both girls.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Um, I'll share a little bit about myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Hughes. I'm the founder and CEO of the Colorado Career Academy, and I focus on helping moms land their dream jobs. I have been in the career space for the past decade, but when I had my first son 4 years ago, I think like Vanessa, it felt very much like a shock to my system of just, wow, this feels so much different to work and have a career that I'm passionate about and excited about, and also have this huge tug at home of wanting to show up 100% there. And so I pivoted my career, made a large career transition, and moved away from kind of the traditional 9 to 5, opened my practice, and have been working with working moms since then. Um, I am really passionate about this work because for a lot of the things that we'll talk about today, a lot of the topics, there's so much that changes when you become a mom. And I think a lot of that stems from just your identity and who you are and who you want to be and kind of where you want your life to go. There's this period of really just kind of trying to figure that out again. And that's really where I work with moms. It's like figuring out who you are in this phase of life right now and where you want it to go, and designing a career that allows you to be able to do that. Um, as far as my motherhood journey, I would say I'm in the thick of it. I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, both boys. My household is very chaotic. We also have 2 dogs, so like there's always something or someone jumping off of something, usually mud in the house, lots of laundry all the time. So excited to be here today. I'm really excited to get to have this conversation with all of you wonderful ladies. So let's jump into some of our questions. And I should say, too, if you're listening in and you have questions, feel free to type those in the chat. We'll try and monitor that as we go, but I'm going to open it up here. So a common theme I'm kind of hearing as you are all introducing yourselves is that becoming a mom just changes so much. There's so many things that kind of go into stepping into your motherhood journey, stepping into that new identity. And often I feel like it's a lot of pieces that we don't necessarily expect when we go into it. So, from your perspective, what is one maybe internal shift that you see women kind of grappling with, either personally or professionally, as they kind of transition into motherhood? Just kind of open it up for whoever wants to start.
Yeah. Go ahead, MJ.
No, you take it, Katie.
I was going to say, I was actually thinking about this the other day. It's wild to me how nobody really, or a lot of women in my life, nobody really talks about that transition when you come back to work after becoming a parent. And your body, I mean, biologically changes. I mean, progesterone drops, your cortisone rises, your nervous system is basically rewired towards threat detection at that point. And I've seen so many women go from outspoken to silent and returning to the workplace with this idea that they were just going to be able to, everything was going to be fine. Because I think that there's been this grin and bear it mentality from the generations before us. And we've seen so many women juggling it, but no one was really talking about how hard it was. And when I got back to the workplace, and all the women I've talked to, they said they're shocked by the silence of all of the other women that have been juggling it and never really talked about it and were never outspoken about it. And it's this shock that everybody else was struggling too, but no one was sharing or talking about it or asking for help.
Yeah, so true.
What were you going to share, MJ?
Well, it's interesting. I think you were kind of talking about probably a lot of duality today, right? How this season of life brings with it a lot of really unspoken, immense, kind of nuanced challenges. But I imagine a lot of us here can speak to it. And I think, right, a lot of us who have clients or work with other women or, right, just our like peer groups of our like close girlfriends can talk about it. I was also blissfully, delightedly surprised at how much clearer my priorities became. I was just, everything became so crystallized, right? Of what I liked, what I didn't like, what I cared about, what I didn't care about. And I think for someone like myself, and I've heard this echoed in my practice, for those of us who might go into motherhood so deeply craving children and feeling really deeply committed to our careers, it can feel like you're kind of stepping into an abyss of like, well, how am I going to cross that impasse that you can't ever describe of before children to after children? And in some ways, I was also surprised. Yes, it's silent because it's kind of indescribable, of how clear I got of, wait, I am very committed to these two spaces. This is what I have time for. Here's how I want my life to look. What became a lot more confusing, and I think is what we'll hit on and why I'm so glad this panel exists, is then the how was more confusing. The what got really clear, what I wanted to do with my time, the impact I wanted to make at home and professionally. But the how between those things was pretty muddy. And I think, right, in part, we've all here built solutions and are really passionate talking about this because the how is always evolving. But that shift, I had another child last year, and I was like, well, I'm excited for that shift to happen again, right? Get even clearer, get things even more crystallized is a nice bonus.
Well, I think you make a good point too about the like duality of it. I think motherhood in general very much feels, I think, in so many aspects, right? It's always the two things can be true at the same time. You can be kind of struggling and working through it or just trying to figure out who you are in that season. And you also can feel very clear and very, prioritized in where your focus is. Vanessa, is that something you see with a lot of the parents that you work with as well?
Yeah, definitely. So it often happens during pregnancy already that you just find, well, we're seeing women starting to shift in how they relate to every aspect of their life. And our therapists like to visualize it actually in terms of what's happening biologically is that your body's expanding and making room for a whole new life, and you don't quite know what shape you're actually going to take to encompass this new life that you're both growing but you're also creating for yourself. And so to be in this state of flux, to have the past you and the future you not quite defined, but to be in this sort of liminal state is incredibly taxing cognitively and emotionally. But it also is a time that allows for crystallization of a lot of new aspects of our personalities and new wants and new things to surface that perhaps we didn't know about ourselves before we had children.
Yeah, so this may kind of jump in. We're having a conversation about what's happening, but we're also all we work in this space, right? So we've all been through it. We've also probably worked with clients who have been through it too. So how do you work through that phase? How do you work through the coming back to work, coming into this space where maybe people are quiet, or coming back and working through that duality of two things happening at the same time? Or what are some of the things that you've seen that have been helpful in that phase?
Mm.
I found that in terms of something that happens is that we come across these really static images of motherhood and what a mother should be, and they really flatten the identity of a mum into almost into products, into Instagram pictures, and we think that we're supposed to conform to them, whichever off-the-shelf version of motherhood we want, and we pick one of them and we're supposed to sort of fit into that. And this flattening of maternal identity and commoditizing of it there's a real struggle. Sorry, there's our cat. And this one just will walk across the screen a bit. And this flattening is something that we see a lot of women struggle with. They feel like they're supposed to be a certain way because now they're entering motherhood, and that's what they've been conditioned to strive to be like. But actually they notice internally that rather than flattening or shrinking into motherhood, they've expanded into it. And actually what they relate to more is to more complexity and a more expansive perspective. And so I think a great way to start is to actually get rid of preconceived ideas of what motherhood should
100%.
look like.
Yeah, breaking down that picture of what it should look like or what it's supposed to look like, because everyone's experience is different. Yeah.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more with that. I think that I even had my own preconceived notions that I didn't know until I tapped into it. It was subconscious, kind of like what Katie was saying earlier too. And the only constant that I see with my clients and the folks I'm working with in career coaching too is that there will be a shift of some sort. There will be a change in how you look at things, but that change is so different for every person. And so I think kind of like you were mentioning, just opening that up to be whatever it is for that individual. And I think it's natural. I feel like a lot of therapists would agree to start with the feelings and really tap into those feelings and understand what feelings are you experiencing, where are those feelings coming from, what are the thoughts attached to those feelings, the expectations attached to those feelings, and letting them be what they are. Because I think some people, the shift might be that they want to go back to work sooner. Some people might not want to go back to work entirely. Some people might, shift how they look at where they want to work and their values within work. And I think it's important to allow it to be so multidimensional and unique for each person.
And I think that's a really good point too, from kind of the career perspective. I think, Katie, you talking about kind of the silence when you come back. I think kind of these two pieces together, right? When you come back into a space that you worked in before you had this baby, you come back as this kind of different person or different version of who you are. And to you, your whole world has shifted, right? But to everybody else, it's kind of stayed the same. And so I think there has to be room for figuring it out, because some women take a leave and decide, you know what, coming back is not the best option for me. Some women do come back and decide, I really love this position still, but it needs to shift or adjust. Some women come back and it's like, no, I definitely don't want to be here anymore. And there has to be, I think there's still this expectation that like whatever you decided before you had this life-changing event and added this whole new person to your life, there has to be this understanding that like you're still a human and you're still working through all those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, things that are going on throughout that time. So I think it's a great point. Um, Katie, I'd love to bring you in too, because I know that you do a lot of work around this space and just kind of like getting to the foundational pieces of how you work through that, but you're also expecting, and so you're going through this shift too. So how do you kind of focus in this space?
Yeah, so a lot of my work is very focused on nervous system regulation and health and wellness foundational work. So I think our bodies, all of the hormones that flood our bodies are basically wired to care give. So it's so hard for us to put ourselves first, not to take that moment to take a dog for a walk or eat a healthy meal or prepare something for us that's going to be nourishing rather than just grabbing something off of our kids' plate and just getting back on that hamster wheel so that we can keep taking care of everybody else. We can take care of our kids, our husband, our household, our job. And my work really stems around fixing that foundational work of getting clear in your body so that you don't have brain fog, so that you're not just grabbing what's on someone's plate, and then you're not able to make clear decisions with a clear mind, because you're running on preservatives and you're running on food that's littered with pesticides, and I know it's so hard for us to prioritize that. But it wasn't until I was kind of able to put myself first that I was able to make those clear decisions for my family, for my work, for my partner, and it was a huge shift for me, especially just focusing on that foundational nervous system and health and wellness portion. It doesn't have to be like this entire fancy wellness plan for yourself. It could just be something as easy as taking 2 minutes before somebody asks you a question to react, or just going and taking a walk to clear your mind instead of just jumping back on that hamster wheel. I think, especially for me and a lot of the women that I work with, I always felt like I had to stay busy, keep putting something on my plate, finish that load of laundry, and then I'll feel like I've accomplished something, or like never stop for a moment. Just finish that last email, just have that call with that person, and then I'll feel like I'm useful to everybody else. But what I'm really doing is I'm not prioritizing my feelings or my body or anything that my mind really needs at that moment.
So I want to pull on one of the threads that you mentioned, because I think it's a really important point. You said that at a certain point you decided to choose yourself, which I think is a really big piece of it, in that I think motherhood can very easily kind of swallow you whole. It's very easy to kind of get lost in everyone else's needs, everyone else's expectations, everything that there is to get done. So first I'll just ask, does that resonate with any of you? And if so, what did that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think for some of us who might find feeling scary, or our own feelings scary, or other people's feelings kind of scary, right? It could be hard to realize like, whoa, I feel unsettled, or I feel resentful, or I feel overwhelmed. And certainly the times in my own process going back to work and enjoying my career and enjoying having little kids, I'm kind of in a sweet spot of I really like this age. I have still been taken aback by how overwhelmed I can feel, how resentful of basic elements of my life I can become, right? Like, oh my God, yeah, I have to do that other load of laundry, or what's on my plate as opposed to what's on my husband's plate. How do I feel about that division? Do I like it? Do I want to change it? right? How do I feel about the demands I've set in place as a person who owns my own business, right? This should be best case scenario, and it's still hard, right? So we have to recognize no matter what our life infrastructure is, even if we choose it, it can still be difficult. And what has certainly helped me, and part of what we teach in Resilient Returns and part of what I teach my clients, is yes, you have to understand your foundational pieces. If your body and your mind aren't being taken care of, it's still hard to choose yourself. But one of the little hacks that I start to use is values language. If it still feels very sticky or very uncomfortable, right? Sticking with selfishness or feeling like, oh, it's not fair for me to choose myself, or that might make me seem like I'm like the old Irish in me, right? Like, oh, you're thinking too much of yourself, right? Like, that's some generational business, right? Instead, I can come back to values language. Okay, what's important to me in my family are values around connection, values around fulfillment, values around play. How well is my current behavior getting me closer to or further away from those values? That closer to or further away from language really helps, right? Because again, sometimes the pillars of my life can't change, or it's hard, right? Whether it's for me or for someone else to choose yourself. But sometimes what I can do to bypass some of that sticky stuff is say, well, I know I value these other things. If I'm only eating scraps of food, because yes, we all become like garbage disposals. I'll just eat that half peanut butter and jelly. I'll eat those goldfish, whatever. That's not going to get me closer to wanting to connect with my kids, right? Because I'm irritable, I'm overdrawn, I'm uncomfortable physically. Same for things like, wait, I am staying up way too late, finishing that last email, folding that last load of laundry. That's not going to help me feel fulfilled when I close my eyes at night. That's just going to make me feel a little annoyed and like I didn't get time for what I needed to do. So coming back to that active choice through using values has been so helpful. And what I like about it, right, is it's a skill, not a personality trait. For those of us, if that feels hard to choose yourself, we can treat it instead like, oh, that's a skill I can practice, as opposed to something that has to feel natural or something that feels easy, because it doesn't always.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think values is such a big part of what I work with my clients too, is as a real foundational piece. Megan, I can see you kind of nodding along too. Does this idea of choosing yourself kind of show up with clients or resonate personally?
Oh, absolutely. I like what MJ was saying. I'm almost imagining like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, and
Yeah.
at the bottom it's like understanding your emotions and what's going on in your body, and then like if you're looking at it holistically, like also what you're doing in your life around your body, and like general wellness. And I try to look at it from like a health at all different sizes and capacities
Yes.
lens. So like that being the foundation, and then understanding your values, and then having like systems set up in the household. But at the very bottom is that understanding your emotions and what's going on in your experience, and understanding your values, I think, is like right after that.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
All interconnected.
Yeah, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think, is so important because I think it always comes back to that old adage too, like, how can you take care of everyone else if you can't take care of yourself first? You have to start at the base. But I think, these things kind of bring up an important point, and this is something I see in my practice a lot, is that we all work in this space, right? So we've all kind of seen how women navigate this. We've navigated it ourselves, and we've got all these ideas of ways on how to navigate that. But I think capacity is always something that needs to be talked about, right? Because not every woman feels like they have the capacity to even know where to start, or they're just overwhelmed in the day to day, or things just feel like they're a mess, and it's like, I don't have time for me at all. So when how do you feel like, in what you see with clients, how does capacity, whether that's physical, emotional, mental capacity, shape a woman's ability to be able to make some of those changes or just start advocating for herself?
I'd love to jump in and address that. I think that um, first of all, it's removing some of the shame and guilt attached to capacity, because you're not at the same capacity that you once were. I don't know any mom who is. And so once you can break that down, then it's a little bit easier to start small. and also figure out what are some of the barriers for addressing some of these needs. I've worked with career coaching clients where they really wanted to find another job that better aligned with their values or how they felt in their new identity as a mother. And they couldn't because of the time that their current job took and the time that they spent with their family outside of their job. And so we realized, okay, well, they need to find a bridge job. They need to find a job that's going to meet their financial needs and help them reduce burnout so that they have a little bit of capacity to start figuring out what could be a good fit. So that's just an example in that context. But I like to remind people that they don't have to accomplish everything at once. Let's start small. Let's figure out what's one small change that you can make. Do you want to start first with like how you're structuring the house? Do you want to start with like tapping into some clarity for work and just explore that and bring some curiosity to it and ask some people questions? It can be really informal. But just breaking this down into bite-sized pieces, I think, and knowing like it doesn't have to happen immediately. Even if you're feeling this sense of urgency and you really want to change your job or other things that are going on in your life, that sense of urgency, I think, adds so much pressure for people, and it just needs to be broken down a lot smaller. So like it's hard, I think, in this context. I'm answering it based on career because that's my jam and that's what I love. But I think, you know, everyone at the panel has other wonderful skill sets and can address like some of those other topics too, or like issues that come up.
So I hear too, I just want to highlight some of those pieces. So it sounds like kind of from your perspective, acknowledging it first that like we don't have the same capacity after we become a mother. We don't have the same amount of time, we don't have the same amount of energy, effort, etc. Breaking it down into kind of smaller pieces and identifying those individually, and then maybe starting with what feels feasible first, of like where feels like a good place for us to begin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What else shows up for, yeah, Katie, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I do want to acknowledge that when you go back in the workplace, there aren't a lot of leaders or HR departments that are trained on what happens to a woman's body and what happens to a woman's brain when she returns. So I think that we're all treated like we're going to come back and we're going to be the same exact person that we were. And instead of drawing on our strengths of becoming a new mother, I think that a lot of times, we are not punished, but it's almost like they don't want to give us special treatment, women, because it'll be unfair to the other coworkers. So I do want to acknowledge that you're doing two jobs, so you do deserve special treatment, and I think it's important to acknowledge that in a corporate environment. But I think when it comes to capacity too, I just wanted to say, I think that there's an alarm bell that we should listen to when it comes to, can I not handle all of this? And what did my caregivers mirror to me about the way that they operated either in the workplace or in the home? And am I kind of subconsciously repeating a lot of those patterns that I witnessed in society or in my familiar programming? And is this really me reacting, or is this something that I'm familiar with? And I'm sure that MJ can really talk to this, because I think that we subconsciously choose situations not because we consciously want them or we consciously want a career or relationship, but because our subconscious just recognizes what's safe. So a lot of times we find ourselves in the same toxic work situations, or we find ourselves not being able to handle a situation because we're in the wrong environment, but we didn't really consciously choose that environment. And I know that's kind of confusing, but I know MJ probably has more to add to that.
Yeah, I could definitely add to that. But I also want to say, even before we get into some of that, like how do you catch your patterns and then maybe interrupt them? It's just since I think all of what we're speaking to, and this analogy is with myself and for people I work with, is the sense of our capacity has changed, but it hasn't diminished, because your bandwidth, right, has just now been blown up by all this immense capacity you've taken on with caregiving. And I think a lot of us can internalize a sense of, oh my God, because I maybe don't really care about these meetings anymore, or I don't really care about these other things I was doing before, that all of a sudden I am not as smart, I'm not as organized, I'm not as capable. Right. And really what we want to recognize instead, just like bandwidth on your internet, it's like before maybe you had 1 or 2 devices running in your home. Now you've got like 17, right? Because you're paying attention to a new infant, right? You're paying attention to your new body changes. You're paying attention to your relationship. If you have other children, you've onboarded a sibling, and all at the same time, you've thought about returning to work or you've already returned to work. Right. So it's that sense of all of these things do take energy, which completely adapts our capacity. It's not that we're not as intelligent, driven, or focused. It's just that we have now diverted a lot of those energy streams to this new space. And so many of us, I think, because that shift into motherhood, because of all the beautiful evolutionary adaptation that's happened there, feels really natural when you're in it, even if it's very painful and very sticky. You just start to do it, right? You wake up with your kid to feed them. You start to learn what certain cries mean. You onboard all that new learning really organically, sometimes without stopping to realize, oh my God, this takes up so much of my capacity. This is so much energy required of me. I have onboarded an entire new job, a new identity, a new human being, a new life. It's just a lot. And right, to like sit down with that seismic shift on like a day-to-day level would drown us all, so we don't do it. But every once in a while it is good to zoom out and realize like, oh, that's why I feel this way, that's why this feels so messy. Right, again, that hierarchy of needs stuff, just continuing to drop down into what you're feeling and where it might be coming from, because we can breeze by a lot of these big changes. Right. And that kind of linked piece, I think, that we've hit on here and will continue to hit on, and repeating patterns helps pull this up, is our capability and our capacity are 2 different things. And sometimes we find ourselves in repeated situations that feel old and uncomfortable because we are perhaps capable of handling them. We realize, oh, I have the skill set to deal with that difficult person at work, or I built up all this skill set in my career. I don't want to throw that away, or I'm scared to pivot. But sometimes our capability and our capacity don't line up. Just because we can do it doesn't mean it's the right fit for us. And that is something to really sit with and look at. And that's the beauty, I think, of a career coach or panels like this, or working with a therapist, is it gives you some of the space to really start to unlink and unhook some of those things.
So, Vanessa, I'd love to bring you into the conversation because, one, obviously, you have all of the background in the mental health space, and probably similar to Megan and MJ, similar thoughts around that. But also, I mean, you moved. For those of you who don't know, Vanessa moved with her family from the UK to the Philippines, which I would imagine was a huge change. But this idea around capacity, capability, and just like how you want to shape your life, I would imagine kind of went into that. So what's coming up for you as we kind of talk about some of these themes?
Yeah, I mean, I love the points you all touched on, and something that I feel is really important to add to the conversation is that the identity and career changes rarely happen in isolation. We're all part of systems, and obviously fundamentally we have the nuclear family set up these days, which is quite different to how people have always lived. And we are drawing on a much smaller pool of resources to raise children these days. Mothers feel this a lot. We have to take on so much. So in my example, me and my husband, we were really overwhelmed with 1 child. and in terms of everything we had to get done, I wanted to change what I did for work, and I wouldn't have been able to do this on my own. I needed him to step up and basically be able to float us financially. I mean, that's a reality that many couples have to face. We're looking at both incomes being important. If one of you wants to go and do something different, the other person has to work, or you have to work as a team. And the other person has to pick up slack or has to work harder. And that's a sacrifice on both sides and a compromise. But something that we found is important as well is actually the collective support around the family, which we were really lacking in the UK. My family was abroad. Tom's family has limitations in terms of their work and health. And so we found ourselves just paying for all the help we needed. And it was really expensive. And so looking at other places in the world where we could potentially have more help available to us while we still focused on the things that were important to us, which was raising our daughter and building purposeful careers, did lead us to consider, other places, and then eventually moved to the Philippines. And here I can see it works for us. We have so much more help, and I just have to say this improved our quality of life so much. I felt a lot of guilt at this that I had to wrestle with of, oh wow, why do I have access to all this help suddenly? Is this right? Why am I entitled to this? And actually this was covered in a newspaper. It was covered in the Times, and we got a lot of comments on this move from people who actually felt that it was a very entitled thing to do, and that it was an incredibly out of touch thing to do. And yeah, this backlash, this is not just an internal view that mothers have of themselves of, oh, I shouldn't take a break and I shouldn't put myself first. It comes out deliberately, explicitly. It's overt, the pressure of society that you shouldn't, that it's not fair. And dealing with this has been part of this phase of motherhood for me, where actually a lot of the things in my life are how I want them, and I'm so happy and grateful that they are this way. But that there is a sense that that's not right. That's not right for parents to have a good time, or for mothers to thrive and to actually get all their needs met. But if I look at the people here, they run on so much more rest than we're used to in the West. They take breaks during the day. They don't, hardly anyone here is running at full pelt Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday, and nobody is raising their children on their own. Everybody is helping out. Communities help out. People on the street help out with your children, and children are so much more of an integral part of society, and that takes so much pressure off you as a parent.
That's amazing. I'm just enthralled listening to your story, because I just think it's such a great example of following your intuition and your gut and knowing what you need. And I think the point too about society will always, I shouldn't say society will always have this expectation, but society still has this expectation of what is right and what is wrong, which is why conversations like this are so important, because each of our experiences are different. Everybody listening, their experience is different, and what you need in certain seasons, or what your village looks like, or where you're at, or whatever, it's different for everyone, right? But there has to be that freedom to choose what is going to be right for you in that particular season. Katie, I want to just check in since we're about 15 minutes out. Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions, but just checking.
Yeah, there's a few comments. I'm just going to put this one up on the screen if you can see it.
Let's see. I would love to discuss navigating the job hunt while pregnant and or with a young child. I just left a role due to an RTO that wouldn't work for my family. I've considered whether I should try to freelance, but I'm definitely trying to figure out how to ascertain during interviews that is a supportive workplace for working moms. Great question. Does anyone want to start? Anyone had clients in this situation?
I've had clients in that situation. Yeah, and I'm sure MJ has too. I want to bounce this off you, MJ. I think one of the things that I look for is really thorough research when you're researching a company. So who's on the board? Is it a diverse group? Who's on the board? Who's in leadership? Is there men and women in leadership? What are their programs that they offer for employees? And then even going into the interview, you can structure questions without asking direct, are you supportive of mothers?
Yeah.
Not yes or no questions, but more open-ended questions that might help you ascertain whether or not the organization aligns with your values. So you could ask questions like, could you share a little bit with me about how you support working parents and some examples of programs that you have in your workplace? asking for specifics, I think, is really important in the interview process. So those are just a few things that come to mind for me. But I know, MJ, I bet you have folks that you work with
Yeah.
too.
And one, just, you go, right? Of job hunting while pregnant with little kids. Megan talked about this earlier. Your capacity is so full. I really give my hat to every woman, every mom who's out here saying, like, there might be better for me. This doesn't have to be the way it is. Just holding on to that kernel of hope is so beautiful in so many ways. But yeah, one of the ones, my only little plug is I have seen recently, and I'm sure other women here have seen it too, or even been in this situation ourselves, where like your website can be great. You can say all the employee benefits out the wazoo. You've got the working mom Slack channel. You say it's so active, and yet when like rubber hits the road, they can still be like talking the talk but not walking the walk. So one of like the core questions I have clients come back to, right, even avoiding things asking like about travel or referencing parenting, if you feel like that might be unsafe given the role, is you could say, tell me a little bit more about what success looks like in this role. Right, that question will get you so far, right? We want to put that back on the company as much as possible, back on each interview or each panel interview you do, continuing to ask, what does success look like in this role? We can glean from that specifics around hours worked, around right keywords like, oh, we really strive for ambition, hustle. We really rely on self-propelled workers, right? Sometimes that's code for we expect you to work at night. We expect you to work on the weekend. We expect you to be available, right? We want to understand success around in-person availability or remote availability. As much as we can utilize our questions to place the information gathering back on the interviewer while still maintaining our position of empowerment, right? Disclosing as much or as little as you want to. I wish it was different in 2026 where I could say, right, say you're pregnant, say these are the things you're looking for, say you want to prioritize your family. It's hard, right? And I think so we want to ask about supporting parents, and we can also, right, put it back as much as possible on the organization. It's hard. And I think the other key, I think Megan hit on this too, of in that deep research, LinkedIn is your BFF. Start DMing women who work at that organization. Right. Again, you don't have to lead with, I'm interviewing there and I'm at this stage, but start to ping and say, hey, I'm looking at this organization, or I might be adjacent to your team. I'd love to book you for 15 minutes, right? Can I buy you a virtual coffee or things like that to get some boots on the ground feedback?
Yeah, I'd love to weigh in on this too.
Yeah.
This is a topic I'm very passionate about because I was in this situation 6 years ago. And I felt so completely lost trying to job search while pregnant. And there was so much panic around benefits. Am I going to find a job in time? What are we going to do about pay? And so I very, very deeply resonate with this question and this situation. So I'm going to be blunt in the way that I talk about this because I learned a lot of things in that process. I 100% echo what MJ and Megan have said so far. I think all of those things are true in my experience. And I, like MJ, would love to say that, they won't discriminate against you for being pregnant, but that is very much still real in the workplace. Like it happens, you will encounter it. I wish it wasn't that way, but it will happen. So researching the companies, looking for red flags, really kind of tuning into that process, I think is like definitely use what you have at your disposal. I find, especially on LinkedIn, that if someone really enjoys working at their organization, they're usually talking about it. They're sharing things in some way, shape, or form. So just looking at their employees, what they're saying about it, what life is like at that organization, I think that's a good kind of first clue or first step. The second thing that I would say, again, if I'm being very blunt, I wouldn't share that you're pregnant until you get an offer. I'm just
And maybe
being
even
very,
later, maybe wait even until you get
yes,
there.
because it is not uncommon, as much as it sucks and it's horrible and it should not happen, those can get rescinded. So I would wait until you get the offer. There's obviously a lot of tact in how you have that conversation and what that looks like. And that's kind of a whole separate conversation. But you want to give yourself as much opportunity and as much leverage as you can throughout that process. So I would wait as long as you can. Obviously, if you're going in for an interview and you're showing, that's a different conversation. But if you're interviewing virtually, I would wait until you get to that point. And then to echo what to say when you get in the interview, I think things like, that you'll probably get asked behavioral interview questions, situational interview questions, right, about what you would do in a certain situation. We'll flip it back on them. Ask questions like, what does it look like if somebody's out? How does the team manage if someone has to step away? It's kind of a like under the radar question, right? To figure out like, what do they do if someone has a sick kid? Or what do they do if somebody has to step away to take care of a aging parent or whatever, right? It gives you a look at how is work divided, how is it seen if you have to leave in the middle of the day. So I would think about questions like that, that also, try to get to the culture, the environment, how they deal with certain situations. And we've got access to ChatGPT these days, so you can put in there like, here's what I need to know. Give me a tactful way of, asking this question in an interview. But that's what I would say to that.
It's like
Any
values-based interview questions.
Yeah.
Asking questions to assess whether or not the organization aligns with your values. I think that's such a good way to do it through those behavioral questions, Cindy.
Yeah, 100%. Any other questions, Katie?
There's just one more question. I'm going to show it here.
I joined this webinar from a different lens. I'm working with a health company to implement a return to work program to support women. What is something you feel corporate world could do to support women in the workforce? Ooh, this is a great question. I know we've got some folks in this space, so who would like to start?
Well, Trista, you could contact me and I built a whole business to do that. So you can let me know. We have a whole integrated software platform that you can implement from a corporate lens. But one of the biggest pieces we advocate for is responding to the leave at the moment of disclosure. So, right, we should have a plan for return to work before any employee ever discloses they're pregnant. And certainly at the moment of disclosure, the wheels should be put in motion for that employee's return to work. Again, whether that's a mom, a dad, no matter how that family is formed, we should be doing pre-leave planning as soon as that disclosure is shared, both just to show our emphasis and support of we are glad you're building your family. We see this as an asset to our infrastructure and to our momentum as an organization. And we're anticipating your return. We value you coming back. And we're going to set the mile markers in place now. We're going to set the structure in place now so that that ramp is built for you before you ever tell us that your baby has arrived. Right? We want to think about that success and build the road to it before that individual ever steps away.
Any other thoughts? All right. Well, I want to give us some space too. We have probably 15 more questions we could talk about, but not enough time. So I want to give you all some space to talk about anything that you have coming up, how folks can connect with you. We all have specialties in different areas. So if there's any resources, communities, current offerings that you have going on that you'd like to share, I'll go backwards this time. I'll start with MJ first.
It was so fun to have it end on Trisha's question about returning to work. So I founded Resilient Returns. Again, it's an HR tech software platform with an integrated platform for businesses to manage parental leave from disclosure through the return to work, as well as a therapist-designed parent program that's embedded within our software to support each parent on an individual level at their own time and their own speed based on their own values. You can learn more about that at resilientreturns.com. And we also offer free monthly micro trainings for people leaders, individuals in the HR space. Our training this month is actually on Wednesday, and it's on when parental leave doesn't go as planned, supporting HR teams, again, people leaders. When someone on your team's parental leave includes a medical complexity, a fetal anomaly, extended bed rest, or things like that, what can we do to both create structure and support for those individuals and also face those circumstances with a lot of compassion and a lot of insight and tools. I'm also a therapist in private practice. If you're curious about the work that I do there, you can also reach me at MJ Harford Counseling. And I'll share, I'm sure Katie will connect us. I'll share Resilient Returns, how you can access a demo and things like that I'm just so glad to see everyone and so grateful for Sydney and Katie pulling us all together. It's just so enriching, right? I'm sure we all feel this way, just to be in community with women and share this. I think every woman wants to reach behind us and pull another woman up the same way, right? I had women ahead of me bringing me forward. So it's just so wonderful to be here together.
Awesome. Megan, want to go next?
Absolutely. So folks can reach out to me through my website. It's Envision Balance Counseling. I'm a licensed counselor in North Carolina and South Carolina. And I also work for another career coach, Eliana Goldstein. And so I contract out for her and do career coaching through her services. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'll post my LinkedIn in the comments here. And I echo what MJ said. And it's just been so nice having this community and sharing some of these experiences and messy feelings, truly messy middle, right? That come up in this process. I feel like it's very validating. I know therapists use that word a lot, but it is.
Very much. All right, Vanessa.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this panel so much. Lots of value came out for me as well. I started Mothering Minds. It's a perinatal mental health platform. We offer online on-demand talk therapy. We work mostly in the UK and Europe. And we also partner with companies who want to better support the parents among them with their mental health. So we have a collective of perinatal psychotherapists who are ready to provide therapy packages as well as workshops and webinars. So you can get in touch with us at motheringminds.uk or with me directly on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks, Vanessa. Katie.
Yeah, I started a company called I'm Her Story. We have a community called Her Space. So if you're dealing with a toxic work situation, maternal discrimination, feel like you're being pushed out because of ageism, or you just want a career redesign, feel like you're in the wrong spot, we've got community for you to tell your story. We're also offering weekly meditations now to regulate your nervous system, start your week grounded. And then we've got a couple of foundational workshops if you really need to regulate your nervous system, get some nutritional support, get off of that hamster wheel so you can make a clear decision, have a conversation at work, hard conversation at work. And then we are offering some group coaching that starts on March 19th for anybody who is dealing with any of the situations I have mentioned before, helping you regulate your nervous system, unblock some of those self-limiting beliefs so you can get clear on your next move.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess I'll go. Sydney Hughes. I work with moms who are in career transition. So I'm a career coach and I specialize in helping moms figure out what their ideal job is and then getting them into it. I feel very strongly that you don't just need a job, you need the right job that's going to give you the balance, the flexibility, the support that you need to be able to show up 100% at home and 100% at work and give you that flexibility between both. I share a lot of content on LinkedIn around working motherhood, tips and tricks around career transitions, ways that you can start, etc. So I would say best way to contact me or connect with me is probably on there. Has a link to my website and information on services and all of those things. And yeah, I would just love to thank all of the ladies on this call today, for everyone who was a part of this panel, for all of the folks joining us and listening in. This was such a great conversation, such a validating space. And as someone in the thick of it, I think this is exactly what I needed today. So thank you all so much for being here and for joining us. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.